Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Dangers and Dragons podcast. Are you ready for another wild ride?
Always.
Okay, good. Because today we're taking a look at Icebound.
Oh, this one's interesting.
Yeah, it really dives into this world where, climate change
Right.
unleashes this deadly virus.
Mm.
But it's not just any virus, right? It
hmm
gives people superpowers. And it also awakens these really terrifying creatures.
It's a wild concept, right? This idea that the very thing that threatens to wipe us out could also be the source of incredible power.
Exactly. And that's what makes Icebound so gripping.
Yeah.
It explores the idea of climate change, of evolution, and like what happens when all those primal instincts come to the surface when civilization crumbles.
It really makes you think about what it means to be human when the world as we know it is falling apart.
Absolutely. And the story jumps right into the action. We meet our protagonist, who's just an average guy navigating this insane new reality, and then bam, he gets infected.
And that's when things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because this virus, it's not just making people sick, it's triggering this awakening, giving people all sorts of powers.
Yeah. Our protagonist ends up with enhanced strength, which is cool, but some of the transformations are even more incredible
Yeah.
and unsettling.
Oh, definitely. The virus seems to be tapping into some hidden evolutionary potential, but the results are completely unpredictable.
Totally. Like Sarah, the accountant, who develops these beautiful, shimmering butterfly wings.
She's such a powerful symbol, isn't she? Like this fragile hope in a world that's falling apart.
Definitely. And then there's old Ben, who can actually manipulate the earth itself, turning concrete into shields.
Imagine that. The story does such a great job of showing how these ordinary people have to adapt to their powers in this new world.
It's a wild ride. And things just get crazier from there.
Hmm.
Governments are falling apart, cities are in chaos, and then just when you think it can't get any worse, Icebound introduces monsters.
Yeah, not your typical zombies or aliens either. We're talking about creatures straight out of a nightmare.
Oh yeah. I mean, imagine like saber-toothed tigers, but with teeth made of ice.
It sends chills down your spine just thinking about it. And the story hints at this chilling connection between the virus and these monsters.
They're not just random creatures, right? It's like they're echoes of prehistoric animals somehow brought back by the virus.
Which makes you wonder, right? Is this virus just unlocking some dormant part of our DNA, or is there something more sinister at play? Like, is it reawakening a primal past that was buried deep within us?
It's a really creepy thought. And to make matters even worse, the government's reaction just throws everything into total chaos. They try to weaponize the awakened, totally missing the real danger.
Yeah, it's like they're completely blind to the bigger picture. Their attempts to control the situation just make everything 1,000 times worse.
It really shows how fragile our systems are when something like this happens, and how power, whether it's political or, superhuman, can be so easily misused when fear takes over.
Definitely. And amidst all this chaos, our protagonist is forced to face a really harsh reality. He witnesses the death of Sarah and old Ben, and he realizes he can't stay in the city any longer.
So he flees into the ruins, and that's where his journey for survival truly begins.
He goes from just trying to get by to fighting for his life every single day.
It's intense.
Yeah.
And what I find fascinating is how Icebound emphasizes adaptation and resilience. Our protagonists have to learn how to fight, how to scavenge, how to navigate this dangerous new world.
He's constantly being tested, forced to make difficult choices in order to survive.
Exactly. And along the way, he runs into other survivors, some with gifts, some broken by what's happened to them, all trying to make sense of this new reality.
It's a dog-eat-dog world out there, and every encounter has its risks. But amidst the chaos, he makes a discovery that changes everything. He finds refuge in this ruined museum and stumbles upon an exhibit.
An exhibit dedicated to Ice Age animals.
Exactly. A whole room full of skeletons, mammoths, saber-toothed tigers, creatures that haven't walked the earth for millennia, and suddenly it hits him. The monsters aren't just figments of his imagination.
Oh, wow. I bet that was a terrifying realization.
It was. The story makes this connection, right? That the virus is somehow bringing back these creatures from the past.
So it's not just creating something new. It's like unearthing something ancient, something primal.
Which brings up a really unsettling question. What else might be hidden within us? What other ancient instincts or abilities are lurking beneath the surface just waiting to be unlocked?
So we left off with our protagonist facing this chilling reality, right? These monsters aren't just random creatures. They're like echoes of the Ice Age brought back by this virus.
It's a lot to process. And that's what really drives him in this next part of the story. He wants answers. He's not just trying to survive anymore.
Yeah, he's like going from scavenger to investigator,
Yeah.
trying to piece together this puzzle in a world that's gone completely haywire.
Exactly. And he can't do it alone, right? The story highlights that really well. He starts meeting these other survivors.
Oh, yeah. The ones who've also been affected by the virus.
Yeah, some are friendly, some are cautious, some are downright dangerous. It's a mixed bag out there.
Oh, definitely. But what I love about this part is it really shows the power of human connection. Even in this crazy apocalyptic world, people are still finding ways to connect and help each other.
You see these glimpses of compassion, of love, even blooming in the ruins. It's pretty amazing.
It really is. Like, even though everything's falling apart, there's still this inherent human need for connection.
Totally. But that doesn't mean it's all sunshine and roses, though.
Oh, no. Definitely not. Icebound doesn't shy away from the darkness either.
Right. You see betrayals, conflicts, heartbreaking losses. The story shows both sides of human nature.
Exactly. And so our protagonist is forming these alliances, learning to survive, and trying to figure out this mystery of the virus. What other clues does he find?
Well, that museum is a huge turning point.
Oh, yeah, with the Ice Age exhibit.
Right. It's not just a coincidence that these monsters look like creatures from that time period.
So there's like a direct link between the virus and our ancient DNA.
The story definitely suggests that. It's like the virus is activating these dormant genes, reawakening a primal past that's been hidden for millions of years.
Okay, that is super creepy. But it makes you think, right, what else could be hidden in our DNA? What other ancient instincts or abilities are just waiting to be unleashed?
Exactly. And Icebound goes even deeper. It explores the moral implications of all this.
Oh, how so?
Well, if this virus is bringing out our primal past, does that mean we're inherently good or evil? Or are we capable of both?
Whoa, those are some heavy questions.
Right, and the story doesn't offer any easy answers. It uses this whole apocalypse scenario to force us to confront these questions about human nature, about the potential for both darkness and light within us.
So the virus is like this catalyst. It strips away everything we think we know about ourselves and shows us what's really underneath.
Exactly. So we have these themes of evolution, survival, and the nature of humanity all intertwined with this mystery of the virus and these monsters. So where does the story go from there?
Does our protagonist find the answers he's looking for?
He does, but they're not what he expected. And the truth is way more disturbing than he could have imagined.
All right, so we're back, and we left off with some pretty huge questions hanging in the air, like, what is the nature of humanity? And is this virus bringing out some primal, hidden part of us?
Right. Our protagonist is searching for those answers. And the story, well, it definitely delivers, but the truth he uncovers is a lot more complicated than he thought, and maybe even more disturbing.
Yeah, it all comes back to that question we were talking about. Is humanity inherently good or evil? Or are we capable of both? Like, is that even possible?
Well, and throughout Icebound, we see both sides, right?
Totally.
There are characters who use their powers for good. They're helping others, they're forming alliances, but then there are others who completely give in to the darkness.
Yeah, they become consumed by their powers.
Right. And they end up doing some really terrible things.
So our protagonist, he's caught in the middle of all this.
He's walking a tightrope.
Yeah.
He has this incredible strength now, and it would be so easy to use it to just take what he wants, to dominate others.
Right.
But he's also seen what happens when people give in to that temptation, and he's fighting to hold on to his humanity.
It's a real struggle for him. But it's not just about his own survival, is it?
No, it's bigger than that. The story asks this question: can humanity as a whole survive this transformation?
Can we hold on to our empathy, our compassion, even when the world is turning upside down?
Exactly. And Icebound explores that through the protagonist's relationships. He meets this young woman who also has powers, and she becomes like this beacon of hope for him.
Oh, interesting. So she represents that idea.
Yeah.
That it is possible to stay good, even in the middle of all this horror.
Yeah. Their bond shows that love and compassion can still exist, even when everything else is falling apart.
Okay, so we have this internal struggle and these relationships, and then there's the whole mystery of the virus. So what is the truth about it? What does the protagonist discover?
Well, the story has this really powerful twist. It turns out the virus isn't some random act of nature or some ancient evil that's been unleashed. It's actually a consequence of our own actions.
You mean like humanity's actions.
Exactly. Remember how the virus was released from the melting permafrost? Well, that's our fault. Climate change, pollution, it all contributed to the disaster.
Whoa. So the virus is like this karmic boomerang.
Yeah, we brought this on ourselves, and that's what makes Icebound so thought-provoking. It's not just a fun adventure story, it's a warning about what could happen if we don't start taking care of our planet.
It's like it's holding up a mirror to humanity and saying, look what you've done.
Exactly. We're not just fighting external monsters in this story, we're also fighting the monsters within ourselves.
The monsters of greed and selfishness and short-sightedness.
Right, and the story doesn't offer any easy answers. There's no magic solution.
So what happens in the end? Does the protagonist save the day?
Well, the ending is really interesting. It's not your typical hero wins scenario. It's more of a quiet moment of reflection. You know, the protagonist is standing there looking out over this frozen landscape, and he makes a choice.
A choice that could lead to either redemption or destruction.
And the author leaves it up to us, the readers, to decide what that choice might be.
It's like the story is still unfolding even after you finish reading it.
It definitely makes you think. So Icebound challenges us, right?
Yeah.
It asks us to confront the darkness within ourselves and to really fight for a better future.
To make different choices.
Right, because the choices we make today will shape the world of tomorrow.
And on that note, it's time to wrap up our deep dive into Icebound. What a wild ride, full of twists, turns, and some serious food for thought.
I know, it's one of those stories that really sticks with you.
And it reminds us that the monsters we fear might not be out there in the world, but inside ourselves. And that's it for another episode of the Changers and Dragons podcast. Don't forget to rate and follow us for more awesome stories and epic adventures.
And until next time, stay curious, stay adventurous, and keep those imaginations burning bright.